Welcome to Spiritual Psi-Kology. My name's Renee McKenna, and I bring my 30-plus years as a recovering addict and ex-crazy person to bring you snackable teachings on spirituality, psychology, and all things personal growth. And today I want to talk about joy as a source of power. And I think there's a difference between joy and happiness. In my experience, happiness is a fairly transient emotion that's often based on external circumstances, and joy is a state of being that arises from within. From my perspective, happiness is more of a noun, and joy is a verb. William Shakespeare said, "Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing." Things won are done. Joy's soul lies in the doing. I think what Shakespeare is saying is that happiness is about getting our own way when things work out the way we want. And the soul's joy lies in our very mindful and present awareness of the life force unfolding around and through us, and our intention in how we engage with it. One of my early spiritual teachers was a guy we called Crazy Tommy. And Crazy Tommy was an old, kind of grizzled-looking ex-biker who had turned his life around sometime in mid-adulthood and come to study Krishnamurti and Ram Dass. And Tommy used to say, "Oh yeah, you're doing great when you got the apartment and the job and the pretty girl on the back of your motorcycle. But what happens when you get laid off, you lose the apartment, they repo the bike, and your girl fucks your best friend?" And I've had enough success and failure, poverty and prosperity to know firsthand that outside circumstances are fleeting. I'm on probably my 5th set of stuff in my life. I get the stuff, the job, the house, the furniture, the guy, even the community. And then circumstances change. And the guy goes away, and usually with him the house and the furniture. And sometimes even the community, depending on the circumstances. But there's always something new. My fear, hopelessness, and self-pity would tell me that there's some abyss I might get tossed into where nothing happens. And I have suffered depression, so that abyss does exist, but it exists only within myself. Because the life force is always rushing to meet me and provide a new set of circumstances. And the good news about starting to live a long time is you see that cycle happen long enough and you can't be quite as afraid when everything goes away. Because you know that after every winter is spring. But you also know that spring doesn't last forever and fall and winter will come again. And if we're dependent on outside circumstances for our happiness, then life might feel like riding on a fishing boat in the deep sea in a storm. We go up and we go down. We go up and we go down. And there's always a possibility we might get tossed overboard and eaten by the fish. And on the material level, in the middle world of existence as a human, this is our experience. But on a soul level, and I have come to believe in the continuity of the soul, even if we do get tossed off the ship, that's not the end of the story. There's a bigger picture, and the work, certainly my work, is to grow in my ability to ground in that larger soul level perspective and the continuity it can provide. Jesus called that building your house upon a rock rather than upon sand. Buddhism refers to it as the ground of being. I like to call it the life force. And for me, it's the thing that keeps the earth spinning, my heart pumping, the tides flowing. And I don't need to do anything to make those things happen. And I've come to believe that the life force itself is a verb. It's the motion of all those things. And the good news is we can cultivate joy in any circumstance in our life. It feels like happiness flows toward me and joy arises from within me and flows out. The soul's joy lies in the doing. And how we can cultivate joy is through our actions. So I've tried to manage my difficult emotions in many different ways. For the first third of my life, I made a valiant effort to manage them with drugs and alcohol. And although I had a lot of fun partying hard, beer, pot, and cocaine brought a lot of consequences. In fact, over time, they actually stopped working and started causing more of their own problems than they were solving. And I was introduced to the idea that if I have a problem, I must be a part of it in the self-transformation of therapy and spiritual practice. And I began to live my life based on spiritual principles and to learn how to participate in a healthy community. And if you want to learn more about the concept of spiritual principles, I did a recent podcast on the spiritual principles underlying the 12 steps. It gives a quick overview of 12 basic spiritual principles. And one of those principles is selfless service. And there's nothing that cultivates joy like selfless service. And the cool thing is we can even have a selfish motive for selfless service and it still works. For me, the selfish motive is I want to feel better. I love shortcuts. And selfless service is a shortcut to joy. So what is selfless service? It's thinking about what someone else needs. How can I make the world a better place? Random acts of kindness. Asking, what can I bring rather than what can I get? Moving outside my own self-absorbed self-centeredness, which is often the root of my suffering. So selfless service certainly can be about being aware of other people, knowing whose birthday is coming up, being aware of what your neighbors might need. When you're going to the store, asking the lady who lives across the street, do you need anything today? It expands our orbit and we start to participate in this larger flow. And when we bring kindness and generosity into that, it actually raises our level of consciousness and our felt experience. And I don't know how this works, but the world reacts to me differently. More positively. Things flow more easily. After this long pandemic lockdown, it's been almost a full year of lockdown here in San Francisco, and we're raising up to the red tier, which means we can talk to each other in public. I have a friend who has a birthday coming up, and so we've organized a potluck. She knows about it. She said, well, why don't we just get pizza? And I said, no, let's have everybody bring stuff because people really love to give. So we have this big text string and somebody's bringing cupcakes, another one's bringing coffee. What can I bring? And rather than putting them out, it actually creates joy to give them an opportunity to participate, to offer something into the pot. And I'm bringing silly hats and a box of photo booth stuff from my daughter's 10th birthday so we can be silly and participate with each other even more. Because when I'm thinking about what I can bring, I'm not concerned, or I'm less concerned with how other people perceive me. I'm less concerned with what I'm getting and more concerned with what I'm giving. The soul's joy lies in the doing. Cultivating joy can be simple acts, making the world a better place, wiping down the bathroom sink in a restaurant, picking up trash and throwing it away, and blessing the ignorance of the people who dropped it, or just picking it up because the world is my yard and I want to make it nice. I have dogs, and we have a lot of dog parks in San Francisco. I always pick up extra dog poop that's not my dog's because I figure sometimes I'm sure I've missed it, and that's my offering to try to be a good dog owner. Dog poop karma. When I'm emotionally distressed, I can't sleep. I'll usually wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and I'll have all my feelings that I didn't have during the day. I might not have even known they were there because I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm completely involved in the material world and not necessarily in touch with my feelings. I try to make room and time and space to actually drop into my emotions because they're a really important source of information and it's part of how I care myself and digest my experience, but I don't always do that. And for a while, I was in this kind of chronically challenging situation. And I was doing the best I can with it, but there was still a lot of residual hurt and sadness and feeling really powerless. And so I would wake up in the middle of the night, and often that would be when I would cry. And I would journal and kind of get in touch with what was going on. But I can only sit in that for so long. Deep feelings are like diving. We develop the skills and the ability to go deep, but we need to come up for air. It's part of the flow. It's like comic relief in a good story. If there's not comic relief, it's just too heavy to bear. And it doesn't go with this larger seasonal flow of life. It's not winter all the time. Even in Alaska, I have a friend actually who lives in Fairbanks. And half the year it's winter and half the year it's summer. And we need to participate in the continuing flow of change. One of the worst things we can do for ourselves is to get stuck. And anything we can do to unstick ourselves puts us back in the life flow and new things can happen. So when I would start to get stuck in these difficult feelings, I pulled up an old behavior from my drinking and drugging days. I wanted to do something kind of radical and exciting, get some blood flowing. So I bought some spray paint and I would go out in the middle of the night and I would paint over graffiti. So fun. I never painted on anything that was private property or anything destructive. And I made it my intention to take some ugly gang tag and turn it into something pretty. And it's a little ninja style because I might get caught, which I kind of like. But I'm a middle-aged woman. Even if I got caught, what are they going to say? I'm trying to make this pretty. And I think it's funny. I started making yarn bombs and just crocheting and knitting in my spare time. And then I would put them together and hang them on telephone poles or trees. The thing about public art is that once it's out there, you got to let it go. Acts of selfless service, the joy is in the doing. Just like the party we're going to throw for my friend. I got to let go of what other people's experience is and just enjoy cooking my chicken wings. And the expansion I feel of my heart in wanting to do something for someone else. And when I come with an attitude of bringing joy, then I always experience joy myself. And the energy of joy, that verb that flows through me, is a tremendous source of power. It anchors me in that ground of being, and the life force moves through me from within. The potential of joy is ever present. It's like an electric plug in our house. It does nothing until we plug ourselves into it. So I encourage you to plug into the current of joy in your own way. Big and fancy, small and simple. Experiment and see if what Shakespeare said is true, that the joy is in the doing. If you like this podcast, consider giving 5 stars and a good review. You can find my book, workbook, and audio series, Allies and Demons, Working with Spirit for Power and Healing, on Amazon, soon to come on Audible. And if you're interested in finding out more about my healing work or my 3-month mentorship program, we can set up a free 30-minute consultation. Shoot me an email, info@reneemckenna.com. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.